Welcome back. So you may remember that at the start of Unit 4, I said that we were starting a 3-unit sequence on related topics, that we would talk about a variety of metadata schemas, all designed for different purposes. And now, here we are in Unit 6, and we've reached the end of that 3-unit sequence, or we will when we get to the end of this unit anyway. In Unit 4, we looked mostly at descriptive metadata schemas and some administrative metadata, and we ended with crosswalks. In Unit 5, we continued with interoperability, talking about structured data and semantic markup, and we ended with repositories and harvesting, basically how to provide and take in metadata that others provide. And in this unit, we're going to continue with structured data in a big way. In the last unit, in Unit 5, we focused on technology that was developed specifically for the web and web documents, and the way that schema.org and microformats and other forms of semantic metadata are used are that they're embedded in documents on the web. In this unit, we're going to focus on technology developed specifically to take advantage of the network structure of the web. Now, of course, the web is a big network, and microformats and schema.org and semantic markup are embedded in documents on the web, which is a network. So this is kind of an artificial distinction. So it might help instead to think of this unit as Structured Data Part 2. We've talked about the semantic web before. It's come up a couple of times. I've mentioned it a couple of times over the last few units. And honestly, we were talking about the semantic web for most of the previous unit, although I didn't really use the term semantic web very much. But we're going to get much deeper into the mechanics of the semantic web here. The paper that I cite here, this 2001 paper by Tim Berners-Lee and James Hendler and Ora Lassila, is really the paper that everyone refers to when talking about the semantic web. It was really the first clearly articulated vision of the semantic web written for the general public. I mean, it wasn't the first ever discussion of the semantic web, but it was the first one that was aimed at a broad general audience. And I'll link to this paper in the resources, of course. So the way this paper and later work on the semantic web frame the discussion around the semantic web is that the traditional web, if, you can talk about the web having a tradition, is that it's a web of documents, that you've got documents and you've got links between documents, but fundamentally the web is about documents, where the semantic web is a web of data. The semantic web provides a framework, a shared framework, to allow data to be shared between applications and between services. One of those applications, of course, is web browsers, but the application could be anything at all. Now, I hear you saying, so what? Right? All of the metadata schemas that we've looked at so far allow you to share data between applications. Dublin Core does that. Heck, even HTML does that to a certain extent. But here's the point of the semantic web, and it's really fairly simple in principle, and it's this: the more data that you can share, the more things you can do. And this brings me to the topic of our next video, and frankly the topic of most of this entire unit, linked data.